welcome to our 10th annual Miami Schools Fair and Conference. This is such a nice group of people. Thank you for being here, for taking the time and making the time to address this important topic. We as parents, our priority is our kids, and what is a priority when it comes to kids? It's their education, their future. So thank you for taking the time to. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Rabbi Julie Jacobs from the Beth David congregation as she welcomes us into the school. Thank you.
Thank you, and to BK, the Brick. Yeah. It's Brickell and BK. Yeah? All right, Mom. So thank you so much. And as a mom, so I've been here at Beth David congregation in the Gordon School. This is my 18th year serving this community, and a mom of 4. And I was thinking about it today, about how important this admissions process is, because my kids have been at Kensington Park, Auburndale, Coconut Grove, Arvida, Miami Art Studio, NOS, Atlantis Academy, Gordon School, and Ferguson. I was thinking about that. And now I have kids in middle school and in college and beyond. So I understand what it feels like when you're kind of stepping into this place and saying, well, what do I do? How do I get there? So if this was back when I first started 18 years ago, I would have been so grateful. So thank you for doing this. And we're very proud of the children who come out of the Gordon School, what they're doing in their lives. And I can't be more proud of all the people who invest their time and their lives into education and to community for our children. So they have safe places to grow up, and nurturing places, and academically challenging places, and to find those places, and that perfect spot for you is what we really want to help you, no matter where you end up and whatever you find. We want to be helpful in supporting that, because the journey is difficult, but in the end, it's so well worth it. It's going to be an amazing day. We're going to hear from so many different schools and presenters talking from early childhood, elementary, middle school, and high school. So after the early childhood and elementary section, which is the first panel, we'd love for you to join us if you're not staying for middle school and high school on a tour of our school. And we're happy to help you with that. So thank you so much, and it's a pleasure being here. And welcome to our community.
Thank you for your partnership once again. I'd like to introduce the speakers on our first session, and please join me on stage as I introduce you. We have Nicole Spreading she's the admissions director with Gordon School. Becky Nieves with admissions director and enrollment management with KLA. We have, I forgot your name. This is really bad. Christina Fitzpatrick. I was going to say Christine, but it's Christina, right? With Center Academy. And we have Vanessa Garcia with Agua by Agua Marina. And we have Jamie Lamb, he's representing Magnet School's office in Miami. And Corina Martinez with Southside Elementary. Thank you all for being here. We have representation from private schools and public schools in Miami, especially in the urban core. So let's get to why we're all here. Choosing a school for your child is not an easy task. It's something that it's time-consuming, it's overwhelming. There are many variables to consider. Either we have too many options, so we have lack of options depending on where you're located. There are so many things to consider, whether you're considering a public or a private school. There's too many things to take into account. Plus, Miami has changed a lot. Demographics have changed. If you've been around for, I've been here for 19 years, and it's a different city. We're popular. What can we say? Miami, it's like we have parents that are coming from up north, from the west, and from the south. And, I used to say that wait lists in Miami schools were just stories to create some sort of hype. That is no longer the case. I speak with admissions directors almost every week. I speak with new parents almost every week, and there's gotten difficult. I'm not just saying this, my idea is for us to get the tools to make those decisions the best way that we can do, and that's why we're all here. But I think that it's more than ever that we need the resources to start, a good school search. So here we are, and we have representatives. We're going to start with the private schools, and then we move into the public school world. I was just thinking that most of the private schools in the urban core right now, they started out as preschools. So I think the Gordon School has been around since 1985, and you guys are kind of like the pioneer in the area. I'd like to start with a general question for everyone, which is basically what is your school? What are the programs in your school, and what age groups you would be able to cater to, and what makes your school different from other school offerings in the area in Miami? So we're going to start with you, Nicole, and we're going to share the microphone, okay?
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for coming. So the Gordon School has 3 different parts. We have an early childhood center that is for ages 12 months to pre-K age children, so 5 years old. We have our day school, which is our elementary school, which is for kindergarten to grade 5. And then we also have a TICVA center. Our TICVA center is for students that are diagnosed with autism disorder, and they are elementary school age. They are from kindergarten to grade 5 as well. But part of that program is our early childhood intervention program, which is for children in the pre-K age, so 4 and 5-year-olds. Our early childhood center is a Reggio Emilia inspired program. It is child-led curriculum that also introduces the values of Judaism. It is a bilingual program where one teacher will teach in English and one will speak fluently in Spanish. Then our day school, Spanish becomes a core language. So it is a trilingual school. The children learn in English, Spanish, and they also get introduced to Hebrew. They have Hebrew multiple times a week as well as Spanish class. And they do science. It is a very academic focused curriculum in the day school. And our TICVA school is a small school. The class sizes are intentionally small to support the children's needs for all social times, such as PE, music, art, all lunch, everything that involves social emotional development the TICVA students do join the day school with. And again, it is a Jewish value-based curriculum. We have a Judaics program. We have a Judaics teacher that meets with all of the students on a weekly basis that will talk about the values of Judaism and also integrate the Jewish holidays.
That's not fair to follow.
But KLA Academy is similar to Gordon in that we are also a Reggio Emilia inspired program, and so as you mentioned, it's a child-centric approach to education. We believe in developing all languages of expression in our students. So from reading, writing, math to construction, art, music, how do they express themselves? How do they show us how they see the world? We take their lead in a lot of ways. And our program is for students as young as 3 months all the way through 5th grade. So this past spring, we graduated our first ever 5th grade class. They were small but mighty, 13 of them, and they went off to middle schools this year, and we are now going and visiting them and seeing how incredibly well they have been doing. We also did start as a preschool program that grew out into elementary. So our elementary school is still growing, and we're just about maybe a mile away from here. So that's a little bit about KLA.
Hi everyone, I'm here representing Setner Academy Private School. We start at 18 months old and we go up to 8th grade right now. However, next year we are going to open our 9th grade and then 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, 1 year thereafter. So we're excited for that, but I think something that really sets us apart is our mindfulness and social emotional learning that we instill into our curriculum. So of course, not only do we focus heavily on the academics portion, but we focus a lot on the social emotional learning component of the children. So can they self-regulate? Do they know how to deal with their emotions? Do they know how to respond when they're in certain situations? We feel that that's really left out with a lot of schools nowadays, unfortunately. So we really try and instill that into our curriculum. We also have some really great programs like entrepreneurship, teaching kids how to start their own businesses starting in 2nd grade. We have our own Shark Tank at the school, which is really fun to see all the kids present their business ideas and then have them come to life at our Be Happy marketplace. Everything is very positive and uplifting within the school, so our values are all centered around just being kind, happy, bringing that positive energy and welcoming all the students from all different backgrounds as well.
Hi, so I'm here from our schools. We are part of the Agua Marina family. We have been in Miami for over 20 years. I know everyone must be wondering that I didn't follow the dress code, but this is our uniform, so I had to show it off. So our school right now, Agua, is an elementary school. We're new. We just opened in August. And now we have pre-K4, kinder and 1st grade, opening 2nd grade for the next school year. Our main focus, what we work on every day, is to give students a meaning and help them get a meaning of everything they learn in every academic objective, and to expose them to many real life experiences. So putting into practice all that they learn in our coffee shop, which they operate. We have our own, they work on the inventories of the school, so they get involved in all these aspects that help them find their passion in life, and this builds into students who will know later in the future what they want to do and what their passion is. Thank you.
Corina, before we talk about outside, I wanna make a note. We discussed 4 amazing private school options in the area. We are really near each other. I think it's important to highlight that most of the programs are totally whole child approach, right? The focus is not solely on academics, and that's a very important differentiation when it comes to private public schools. I'm not making generalizations, but if you think about it, one of the broad things that people think when it comes to public offerings is that they might be much more academic and not have the whole child approach. There are a few public school offerings that cater to the whole child, but that's a very important consideration when it comes to different approaches, okay? Before we open the mic for Corina, I'd like to say that when it comes to public school offerings, it's a big world, and we have over 400 schools in Miami-Dade. This is the 4th largest district in the U.S. So we have many offerings. Basically, what you need to know, if you don't know this, is that there are 3 types of public school offerings. Your traditional or neighborhood school, which, according to your zip code, you get to attend. Your student, your son, your daughter would attend. Then you have a charter option, which is another public school offering. It's mostly smaller. These are general concepts. It's also public and it's free, but it's managed by a private organization or a corporation. So they have a little more flexibility, they have their own application processes. And then we have magnet schools, which we have the executive director, which is going to share with us everything about magnet schools in a little bit. I want Corina to share with us Southside, which is the public school in the neighborhood, what makes it special, because it's a neighborhood school, but it's also a magnet school. So it gets confusing sometimes. I think that you want to explain both, both ways in which you can approach the school.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, so we are both a neighborhood school, so a boundary school. If the family lives in the area, based on your address on your zip code, you automatically enter our school. Additionally, we offer our magnet program, Brain Museums Magnet. We are the only one in this area. The closest one is the one in all the way in.
WT Brown, which is up north.
So.
And far away, right? It's neighborhood school.
But a museums magnet.
Oh, okay.
So we have the Museums Magnet program at Southside, and that offers when you apply to the magnet program at our school, all students receive that type of learning. So all teachers in the classroom, whether you are in our school because of the magnet or as a boundary school, you go ahead and you still receive all of the same benefits, basically. You still are receiving the same curriculum from all of our teachers. As a museum's magnet, we teach through object-based learning, so we are not only using our textbooks, but real-life objects, visuals, photographs, sculptures, artifacts, so that we can go ahead and we can extend that learning out of that textbook, right? Make it those real-life connections, make it more easy to digest, understand, make those life connections, all of that. Additionally to our magnet program, we also offer a BISO program in Spanish. So we teach Spanish to the students 3 times a week. And through that program, they also receive their math and science and social studies in Spanish as well. So they're learning all of this content in English as well as in Spanish. The vocabulary and the conversations are also happening in both languages. And if that wasn't enough, we're also a STEAM school. So we have our STEAM program taking place in the classrooms as well. So we follow the STEAM designation handbook, and we go ahead and we have hands-on science, engineering, art lessons that are occurring inside of the classroom, competitions that allow the students to engage with students from other schools throughout the district, in robotics competitions, essay writing competition, math competitions. So we have a lot to choose from and learn, different ways of learning within our walls.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Jamie, I'd love for you, and we'll touch upon middle school and high school for magnet schools. I think that, you want to share what a magnet school is and what type of programs for elementary school are available.
All right, so one thing I do want to explain that we have 3 different types of magnet schools, which right on the south side is a school-wide program, so everybody in the school is part of the magnet program. The whole point of magnet is to allow parents from outside the boundary area to get into the school. And also the whole point of magnet is to bring diversity to school, because there's a lot of benefits for kids to do classes with different nationalities, for example. So we have a magnet program where it's a program in a school, so it's a boundary school, where there's kids that are just only in the magnet program, but they're attending it. So the kids in the magnet program they apply to get into that magnet program, but it's not incorporated in the whole school. So for example, like Coral Gables Senior High, they have IB programs. So there's people who are just in that program, but then they do their regular classes with everyone else. But there's specialized programs, like electives, that these kids take. Then you have the school-wide program, which is like Southside, where you have kids from outside the boundary that are coming in for their magnet program, and all the kids in that school are taking that program also. And in Southside's situation is it's incorporated in elementary, it's incorporated within the whole entire curriculum. Then you have our district-wide programs, and our district-wide programs are like the most popular ones because everybody in the school applied to get into a school, so that school has no boundary kids. So a lot of times the culture in our district-wide schools are a lot different than our boundary schools because most of the time the kids are there, they want to be there. High schools, you see that a lot. In our district-wide, if you ever visit our district-wide schools, you'll see a big difference in what's happening in the schools. The kids are more, they participate more. They're doing a lot of really cool projects that we have, like down by the zoo, we have a program that the kids are at the zoo every other day in a particular laboratory. They're dissecting poop from animals or figuring out what's wrong with it. Like the equipment that they have is phenomenal. So those are like the 3 different types of schools. So district-wide are the most popular ones, like a Mass Academy in Key Biscayne is a district-wide, so everybody there has to apply. But that Mass Academy in Key Biscayne is a different story because there's no priority.
But it's kind of like Southside here, right? I mean, a little bit, if you want to compare, like, there has, well, you can explain it, but there's a minimum or like a chair, like a...
Well, no, not really, because Mass Academy is still differently, and now we're going to middle school. I don't know if we'll talk about that.
No, let's just keep it for the... I love for you now that we're going to do this, but I think that it's a good opportunity for you to talk about the application periods for magnet schools and how kids should go about applying for those.
All right, so the magnet application process is you're applying for next year. So you're applying a year and ahead. So make sure that when you're starting school out, like I was just telling Karen earlier, like you're in 4th grade, start looking at your middle school options. Even if you plan to stay in the school you're at, it doesn't hurt to look. There's so many different options. There's great schools, from private, charter. It's a mixed culture. So there's a lot of options that you have. So do your research. Now the magnet application process is from October 1st and closes January 15th. And then between January 15th to March 15th, we process the applications. Usually there are schools that do auditions or testing, and that happens within that time period. And on March 15th, you'll get your notification and see if you got accepted or not. Magnet school is a random selection process. The only time it's not a random selection process is if it's a visual performing arts school, and that's based on talent. Like New Old School of the Arts is audition based, and that
Mostly for middle schoolers and...
yeah, but we do have some elementaries that are visual performing arts. In this area, we don't, but if you venture out, we do. So from October 1st to January 15th, and on March 15th, you get your notification, and then you're given 2 weeks to accept the school. Now, to apply for Magnet, you can choose up to 5 schools, and it doesn't matter, there's no fee to it. And I always tell parents, just apply. You're better off applying than not applying at all, because you're better having that option than not having an option, if you get selected or not. Around April, we do an off-cycle process, which is something we started about a few years ago. And the off-cycle process is for schools that, for example, that have space available. They open up on a first-come, first-served basis. So if the school has space, you can then apply at that moment. But usually, depending on the school you're applying to, most of our high-demand schools, you want to apply during the application process. Like Mass Academy, for example, doesn't go through off-cycle.
So one other thing that I'd like to mention that some parents rush on October 1st to
Yeah.
apply. There's no need to do that, right? Can you?
Yeah, so it does not, when you're applying for Magnet, it doesn't matter if you apply October 1st or January 15th, it does not affect your result. The process is random. Eligibility, some of our schools have eligibility, and based on eligibility, it's a very minimal 2.0. The whole point of eligibility is to make sure that the child, when they're in that school, that they can maintain and keep up with the curriculum that Magnet program has. So as long as they meet eligibility, you could be a straight A student. It doesn't affect, it's not going to make you first on the list to get in. It just makes you eligible for random selection. Now there is some priorities that are done in the Magnet application process, which is if you have a sibling in the school, there's a priority for that. Now it's not guaranteed. For example, if you're applying for IPREP in downtown, IPREP, that school is a very high demanding school for elementary. That if you don't get in pre-K for that, to get in intergrades is very difficult, because even if you have a sibling, if there's no space, they can't put you in there. So sibling priority and even military priority is based on availability. The other priority is military. The military gets the top priority over a sibling. Military is because it's an agreement we have, it's a statute we have to follow, that if a military family moves in, we have to find them a school as long as there's availability in the school. And then there's everyone else. We have another priority, which is an articulation. So if you went to, like Sunset Elementary, there's an articulation to get to Harvard Middle, for example. It's not a guarantee, but at least it puts you on top of the list of everyone else. Again, there's so much I can explain, but I don't want to confuse everyone. I'm better if you want to ask me more personal questions, I can answer you more on one-on-one, but it's so vast, we have so many programs and so many processes, but the key to remember is there's no rush after January 15th to submit your documents, and on March 15th the notification goes out, and make sure you keep up on that. And I always recommend is every year our schools, they do tours. Tour the schools. Whatever school you decide to go to, private, charter, whatnot, go inside and see the school. You gotta make sure that's the school that you want to put your child into. And especially in elementary, there's probably particular environments you want them to be in or don't want them to be in. So until you walk into a school, don't judge it by the school by their parents. Go inside and make sure if they're doing the curriculum you want. Is it the environment you want your kid in? Are the teachers, do you feel comfortable with it? Do you feel comfortable with what they're doing? So it's very important that you go inside and see these schools. Because you'd be surprised sometimes. You might look at schools like, I don't want to go there. Or I'll use an example. There's a high school, Dash. Dash, back in the day, was a school nobody wanted to go to because it was there was riots at the time. But it's one of the best schools now in the nation. So you can't judge it by where it's located. You got to go inside and see what it's actually about.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if you want to just touch upon how you would want to. No, okay, that's fine because it's a magnet school.
I'm happy to meet.
I don't think it applies now that we discuss all about magnet school.
Yes.
It would be just if you want to talk about how a boundary, like a parent leaving in 331 to 9, would apply to Southside.
Well, if you're in the boundary, you don't have to apply. We're automatically your school. It's if you are outside. So let's say that you are the parent coming from somewhere in North Miami because you work in downtown. So we're already that school that's closest to you. You want them to be, close to where you're working for whatever emergency. Now we are a choice school for you. So now you would have to undergo the magnet application process to get into our school if you're outside of that boundary. So that would be an example.
You would have to only register.
You would have to,
Just by providing your,
if you're a boundary school, you register, and if it's for the magnet, then it would be the application until the January 15th, and then the notification March 15th.
I don't know if it's clear, but I think it has to be. One thing is to register. You do have to register. It's not like you just show up on the first day of school. You have to complete certain documentations.
All right, so.
Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, for the boundary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so let me explain. So, say you just moved here, or your child's going to start school, you do have to contact your boundary school and let them know you're going to go, because you do need to provide particular documents. If you decide to go to another school that's not your boundary school, you still have to register with your home school, because then you have to request a transfer. Now, if you're not applying for magnet, we have choice options. Now, choice options are schools that have like a Cambridge program in it that's not a magnet. And it's sort of a program they're offering to the kids, or they might have a specialized robotics program. If you're interested in a school that's not your boundary school and it's not a magnet, in fact, our website has it where you can search for non-magnet choices. And so what you do is you contact that school, and you tell them, look, I'm interested in the school. You can even request, can I see the school, can I tour it? Say you're interested. Then you ask the principal, look, I'm interested in the school, or whoever you're talking to at that school. Then in that process, what you'll do is you start a region transfer. You have to go to your home school, and then the principal will sign a document. Then you have to take it to the region, and then the region. But you want to make sure the school you're going to, that they're going to accept you going in, because you don't want to go through that whole process. Now, we are looking at improving that process, but technology, we're in the process of doing that. Hopefully, within a year or two, we'll get better. But there is a process, but make sure you contact your home school, whatever you decide to do. If you're going private, you don't have to do anything. Just go to the private school.
Well, the application processes when it comes to private schools are completely different. We'll see, and that's why if you have any particular questions about public, specifically magnet schools, I encourage you to ask those questions once we have a connect with refreshments after the session. I think you'll get to hear Vanessa. Can you share with us the application process for our Marina, for our West Marina? Because it's different. It just I feel like sometimes when you want to approach a public school, even though I see that on the website we have the tours and everything, sometimes it's not as easy to approach. Like even on the phone, or this is one other difference that I've seen, and it depends on the school and the administrator at the school as well.
So for us, the first approach, as you said, is basically all of our parents come through the website or through recommendations, from other Agua Marina families. Since we are like the newest kid on the block, we see how he participates in class, how he responds to different scenarios in school, inside the classroom, in the playground, in the cafeteria, which is very important for us to see how he feels in our environment more than how he performs in a test, because not everyone is a good test taker, so that's very important for us. Then we would have a meeting with the parents to get to know the family and make sure that their values are completely aligned with our values, and get to know them better, anticipate what they're looking for in the school, and to see and determine if we can provide and fulfill their expectations. And finally, we have a board meeting. We analyze, the admissions process. We check that all the documentation is correct, that everything is obviously in line, and then you would get a response from us in approximately a month.
So do you have rolling admissions, or is it like you have a specific period?
We have rolling admissions, but we could say our admissions period, because we still are opening, other school grades. But we finish at March 31st. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you share I know that there's people coming from New York and you have a wait list
just for New Yorkers. That's what I've heard. So I know it's all about, the healthy food and the mindfulness and all that good stuff. We know what makes special, but is there a specific application process that's different from other schools, or?
It is a little similar to what you explained. We start off with a tour. We do a pretty extensive tour because it is very important to try and get to know the family and for them to get to know us. So it's very detailed. We try and take as much time as we can with the family while they're there on campus, try and answer any questions that they have. We always try and make ourselves available, of course, after the fact as well and throughout the whole process, because it is a big decision, especially for families moving from a different state and in a lot of cases now to different countries. So we do have a lot of transplants that are now here and looking at the school, whether through research or through word of mouth, which is our most common referral, is the word of mouth. But after the tour, then we have the online application, and we do have certain documents that everyone would need to upload. Standard things like a most recent report card, at least one teacher recommendation, and things like that. And then we do a really fun part called the Shadow Day on campus. So every child gets to spend a full day of school with us in their current grade level. And it does have to be done before the admissions process can be complete. So it's required. And it's a really great opportunity for the child to get to know us, to really see if they feel comfortable in our school, in our environment, and we also get to observe the child throughout that whole day as well. We do a brief academic and fine and gross motor assessment during the day just to make sure that the child's at grade level and ready to start within the classroom. We don't look for anything super above grade level. However, if we do see that the child is at a certain point below grade level, then we know that we can get them certain resources in addition to the core classes, maybe pull them out for tutoring during their specials classes or things like that. So it's a really eye-opening day for us to get a good look into where a child can be placed within a classroom, how they're going to behave. If they need more challenging work, we can also give them more challenging work as well. And then it gives the family a great opportunity to make sure we're a good fit. So that's the last step in the process, and we do have rolling admissions throughout the entire school year. We try and make sure that we have space in every grade level available throughout the school year because we do have so many families that try and come throughout the school year. So right now we are still taking on families, and we will be until the spring. But that's pretty much the process, and then you get your decision in about 2 weeks after you finish the full admissions process.
Perfect. Is there a difference between admission to elementary and middle school, or is it pretty much the same process?
It is the exact same process.
Great, thank you. Brittany, I know that KLA's gotten really hard to get into as well. And what do you look into an application or a family? What are the things that we need to have into consideration when applying to your school?
Absolutely. So I think the number one thing, like everyone up here is saying, is fit. Is it the right space for your family? I know that often having more options can make things more complicated, but that's also the beauty of being in Miami. There are choices. And so we want to make sure that when a family first comes on to campus and joins us for a tour all the way through the application process, that we are aligned in our mission and our values and our goals for children at the end of the day. So that alignment definitely is number one. We also do offer rolling admissions, but we also have set admissions deadlines as well. So right now we're in rolling admission cycle for the current school year. So we have reached capacity in several grades, but we do have space in a couple of grades as well. So we continue to accept applications as there is availability. We launched our application today for next school year, so getting started early. And families will need to complete the application process to KLA Academy by mid-February. We then review all applications throughout the month of February. We send notifications on March 1st, which is in alignment with a lot of other independent schools in the area. And then families on March 1st will get their notification, and those who are accepted will then have 2 weeks to commit for the following school year. And in terms of process, kind of similarly, there's different things for preschool and elementary. So for our preschool program, We have 3-month-olds. How do you kind of do that process, right? Like, what does it look like? Some don't even hold their heads up yet. Some aren't even born yet. So for families who are looking for our Baby Nidos program, which are our youngest students on campus, they tour with us, they submit an application, a birth certificate if the child's born. A lot of times they're not. And then we do a family meeting with the parents to make sure, again, that we are aligned. For families who are looking for our Nidos through pre-K3 program, so our 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and 3-year-olds, they tour, the same thing, they submit an application, a birth certificate because they're actually born, and then they come on campus for a 20-minute music play group with one of our music teachers, and that's an opportunity for us to see the students in a small group setting with peers of the same age to see how do they interact in our space, how do they respond to a really flexible space. But also for the parents to see how the teachers respond to students in our campus and within our community. And then students who look at pre-K4 and above, they will submit an application, tour as well, but we then start requiring transcripts, recommendations, and an observation session, which is part of the shadow visit as well. So it is really comprehensive, but again, I know it feels like a long process maybe for families, but if we want to get to know each family to make sure in the long run it is the right fit, because we might have your child with us from the time they're 3 months old to the time they're 11. We want to make sure that we are meeting both each other's needs during that time.
Talking about the right fit, I was going to ask you, you guys are experts on learning or finding out if a family is a good fit for the school. How can parents know if we are a good fit for the school? What would you suggest?
My first suggestion would be to come on a tour. So when you physically get to the school, you really get a feel for the environment. You get a feel for the people, you get a feel for the classrooms, the curriculum. You can feel the culture of the school by being physically on the school premise. So that's always our first step in our enrollment process is we require families to come on a tour. We know that some of the families are not physically in Miami yet, and we offer virtual tours. We've done plenty of those in the past. And even though they're not physically here and maybe not as meaningful, they still get that feel for the school, that environment. They see it, they speak with you through conversation. A little bit about our admissions process is it's very similar. Like I said, we begin with a tour. Then for all 3 schools, we do an application. Everyone must fill out an application, pay the application fee. Then we invite the youngest children, the 12 months to the pre-K, we invite them to come in for a play date where they can come with their caretaker or a parent, so that way they're comfortable in the school, in the classroom. They get to come for about an hour, and they get to play with the materials, they get to meet the teachers, the parents get to meet the teachers, they get to see the classroom, and they get to see what it's like for their child here. For the day school, for elementary school age children, they fill out an application, they come on a tour, they fill out an application, then we ask for their previous school reports, we ask for teacher recommendations and principal recommendations, then we invite them to come and spend a day on campus where they can see if they like the school, if they're a good fit, if our missions align, all of these important things. During that time, we will pull them out for a short ELA assessment to see if they are on grade level or where they fall. The boarding school and elementary does focus on individualized and differentiated learning. So if they're above grade level in math, but not above grade level in reading, we can accommodate those levels and those needs for those students. So it really gives us an opportunity to see where they fall and where we can challenge them, where they need extra help, if they need extra help, and what kind of support we can provide. The same process is for the TICVA Center. We invite them to come. We do a small assessment, see where they're at. There are certain criteria that needs to be met to be in the TICVA program. We can speak specifically about that at a later time, but it depends on the family and things like that. Once you come in for the day, you can expect about 5 to 10 business days for an acceptance into the school.
Do you have rolling admissions?
So we do have rolling admissions. We do, depending on class sizes, it's very similar to the KLA. We have 2 core periods though. We do a January enrollment for early childhood as well as a fall enrollment period. We begin re-enrollment for those children that are currently enrolled in the beginning of December, and then we open it up to outsiders, the general public, in around January or February.
Wonderful. I think that I want to encourage everyone, once we're done with second session, to ask questions, to invite you to connect directly with the school representatives. I know you might have a lot of questions, and I really want to thank everyone for sharing your knowledge, your insights on applying and choosing a school in Miami. Help me, a big round of applause for you guys, and hopefully, if any of you are looking for elementary school or early childhood and you want to tour now, you're not interested in staying for the middle school and the high school admissions session, you can go with
You can follow me. Yes.
and she'll guide you on the tour.
Can I ask a general question?
Yes, of course.
Is it possible to know your acceptance rate?
I don't know if you guys have it.
I would say it would vary by
I was-
school, right? And it varies by
Of course,
applicant,
In every age.
and by applicant season, right? I can't speak for everyone, but I think there are themes that we're all seeing with families relocating, and so it has gotten, I will say, more challenging. And then there are also specific grade levels within each school that have higher or lower acceptance rates. So I think speaking generally across all grades is really difficult.
For instance, I'm foreign and I still learn about the system. And my kid is almost 4, so he studied the past 2 years ago. Like for that first, it is pre-3, pre-4, and then
Kinder.
For the kinder?
Well, and I think, typically kindergarten is a main entry point across the country, right? Within the U.S. and our education system here, that is a main entry point for school, so that can often be a more challenging one. Or it might be easier because they might have more spaces, because they might add another grade or another section of class in kindergarten. So every school likely, I don't want to speak for you, is probably different. But I wouldn't focus so much on acceptance rate as if you find the school that you are most interested in, really expressing and understanding why it is the right fit possibly for you and your family. I think most schools appreciate when a family is very transparent and says, this is the right school for my family and this is why. And then they have the whole picture of your child as well on top of it. So I don't think you should focus on numbers so much. I know that's probably really hard as a parent, but the numbers don't tell the whole story.
And so supply and demand changes every year. Like she was saying, there's trends.
Right.
There was a big trend on robotics. When you're at, everyone needed robotics in the program. And everyone was flocking to robotics schools. So about the acceptance rate, I don't know if you mean about if you apply how easy it is to get accepted, or is it how many parents get it, apply, how many do not get accepted? Like, in which way are you looking at the acceptance rate?
Like how many apply and how many do they?
It used to be 8 in a private school settings. That's what I know. It's 8 of 10, 8 would enter the school. That's changed.
80%.
No, at 80%. So out of 10, 8 wouldn't get in. So that was really back in probably 2017, 18. Those are the last, pre-COVID. Those are the last statistics we have. We don't have statistics, at least I don't have, and I've been doing the research. I don't think that anyone has them yet, or maybe there is a number, but Miami's what we're talking about, and I don't think that Miami has that number.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's got like a 100% acceptance rate. Even our most demanding schools, acceptance rate's been like 80% at best. I've had schools with they all intend on having wait lists, it all depends too. I mean, also schools, how many kids are in the classroom also, and how many teachers they have in the classroom. So there's multiple angles to look at. That's another thing when you're looking at tour. How many kids are being taught in the class? Is it a classroom of 8 per teacher, 15, or 20? So, in some cases, does your child need that special attention, and you need to be in an environment that is a smaller class size ratio per teacher. So those are things you might want to look at.
And I think even as we were speaking up here, you probably noticed that some of us have grown in size or changed locations or added more grades as a response to what is happening. Not everyone is, because not everyone can, or maybe not everyone wants to move their program that way. But for us, we moved facilities. We built an entirely new campus before we knew there were going to be an influx of people from New York, like myself, right? But we built that anticipating that there would be growth over time, and you guys have added a program, right? Yes. So I think schools are trying to adapt and respond to what's happening as best we can, but
Thank you so much. And of course, I invite you to ask those questions. I think they're very valuable. It was a great question. I think it would be nice if we can all, this is the whole idea of doing these events, just to feel welcome to approach the speakers and ask those questions. And maybe, the more personalized, the better if we take them to the hallway on our Connect and Refreshment opportunity later. Thank you so much again for being here. Thank you. When we're thinking of middle and upper school programs, I think that there's so many different things that we need to consider. Such a different stage of life. And I want to bring this question to, we have representatives from the private schools, we have a charter school representative, and we have a magnet schools representative. So we have 3 very specific areas, and I think that I want to hear from you. We'll start with John with Palmetto Bay. You guys are, and you'll tell us a little bit about your school, but my question is, what do I have to consider as a parent of a fifth grader going into middle school? What would be considerations that me as a parent would consider when applying or looking for a middle school?
Well, the first thing I would say is stop being so afraid. You can't stop them from growing up, so lean into it. It's going to be okay. My name is John Eubanks, and I'm the Associate Director and co-owner of Palmetto Bay Academy. We are a very small private middle and high school. We're not that creative. We're actually in Palmetto Bay, which is a little south of here. You may tell from my accent, I'm not originally from Miami. I'm originally from Louisiana, but spent most of my adult life in Texas. So please forgive the accent if it distracts. But my wife and I have been at Palmetto Bay Academy. This is our 8th year. We were public school teachers in Texas, and then we were international educators in China and Indonesia. And from there, we became connected with the founder of the school, and that's how we made our way to Miami. One thing that has been really amazing to see is there are a lot of private schools in Miami. I would say this market is very different than the market that I was accustomed to. There are probably more private schools. There are probably more children attending private schools within a 5-mile radius of here than there are in the entire city of Houston, Texas, which is where I was for a lot of years. So it's very different. But to really answer the question seriously about what parents should think about going from 5th grade to 6th grade, making that move into middle school, is that it is very different. That's something else that even if you're staying in the same school, I know there are schools here that are K through 8, but that move from 5th grade to 6th grade, even if it's the same uniform, if it's the same, it is different. That you just really do have to accept that. The expectations are different. Pretty soon you'll start looking at, is my student going to take high school credit courses while they're in middle school? Everything starts to count a little bit more. But again, I'll also go back to what I said, don't be afraid. It's going to happen. So don't think that it has to be something that's treacherous. Something else I would say, and again, it's probably easy for me to say that coming from a small school, but I would get away a little bit from too much of that thinking, oh, well, my child has to go to a good school. Because I will tell you, they're all good schools for somebody. And so every child doesn't need to go to the same school. When I say we're small, just to give you an idea, we have 42 students a year. That's from grades 6 to 12. I mean, we're small. And then there are very, very large schools. There are 3,000 and 4,000 student, high schools here in Miami. So just know that it's a change, that it's different. The tours that were mentioned earlier, the first step, you have to go, and you have to be very, and someone else said it, be very transparent with the admission staff on what you're expecting. If you're very interested in your child doing robotics, well, you better ask the question, is there a robotics program? Because you'll be surprised when people say later, well, why is my son not in the marching band? Well, we don't have a marching band. So just those things, really do your homework, and then make sure the people you're talking to, they're there for a reason, so make them answer all of your questions.
Thank you. I think one of the other things that we were talking with Valerie with Miami Arts Charter School is that you kind of get a sense of where your kid is heading. Like when they're 10, 11, you start thinking of, okay, she's great at drawing. Maybe she has some sort of, talent in arts, or maybe she's good at, you can identify that she's great at tennis or, music or some sort of, talent that you don't get a sense of that when they're younger. And I think that middle school is that stage where you can start looking into specific schools. Can you share a little bit about your school?
Yeah, I do want to, my name is Valerie Barreiro. I'm from Miami Arts Charter School. I'm the admissions director and assistant principal for the arts there. I do want to touch on what you said about the fear, because it's so important. But I do want to touch on how to get them prepared. And this is something specifically to my school, that we're a tuition-free charter school, but with a focus in the visual and performing arts. So students do have to audition to get in. We're one of the few charter schools, which is very different. In case you don't know, charter schools, some of them have a lottery base. So they have to not only take everyone that applies, there's a lottery, right? For us, there's an audition base. And taking that, I can tell you, I have parents that come in with the student well prepared, extremely prepared. So prepared that we can tell the portfolios are not by the child, right? And we also have the other way around, where the child is not prepared. They're coming to take a dance audition with jeans, just to give you the spectrum. So for me, it's very important they come prepared. Few options, take a look at the website, see what they have to bring if it's an audition. Those are called audition requirements, right? When you go to campus tours, ask what are the requirements if you're an audition-based school. What programs do you offer? What programs do you offer after school? Also, you touch on campus tours. Another way to really learn about the schools is the performances. At least for us, I always tell the parents, come and see what we're all about, because that's what's really going to sell the program. And can your child see themselves on stage or really doing that art? Another thing during campus tours, we get parents that come in, oh, my child's going to visual arts. And once they see all the arts, they're like, oh, I want to see photography. Mom, can I try for photography? So it's really important that you showcase everything, right, that you have in your school, because the students might be open to different things, and parents too. Maybe they don't know. Other ones say, well, the classroom, the teachers, the faculty, but the main thing is, can your child see themselves in that school, right? In those hallways with those teachers, and that's really important. But going back, preparedness, doing your homework. Don't be so afraid. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be overwhelming with the questions, right? But don't be afraid to really connect with the admissions director or the staff, because that's what we're there for, right?
How would you know your daughter or son is gifted to audition? I mean, do they have to be total artists to
Right. No, and that could turn off parents. I have parents that look at me and they're like, they have to do a portfolio. I don't even know what that is. Like, how do I? So we do offer some workshops in that case, especially for sixth grades. I do want to mention in middle school, we're not looking for perfection, right? And I tell the parents this, our job is to mold them, right? To educate them, to give them those fundamentals to then really pursue a career in the arts, and that's really our vision, right? So I'm not looking for perfection in sixth grade. We do have a lot more space in sixth grade than any other grades, because that's the first grade that is coming in. But yeah, just make sure.
Thank you. I think that on that note, magnet schools have a variety of different programs of specialization. Can you share with us which ones would have auditions, which ones, like, for example, robotics or STEM? I know STEM, liberal arts, do they have, there are some that have testing, like bilingual programs have testing. Can you share with us broadly, because I know that there's so many, but can you share with us, especially the schools that are mostly in this area?
Exactly like you mentioned, we do have our visual performing arts schools. In the same process you mentioned, there's an audition process. We do have there's some middle schools that do are test-based. The test-based is because of it's a language program. We have Carver Middle, which they have an IS program. And pretty much what that is the kid learns in that language. So they're taking math class in Italian. They're taking science class in Italian. So there's a test to make sure that when the child's in that class, doing that class, that they can sustain and continue and learn. And then the other aspect, we have IE programs where it's just an elective they take a foreign language. So when you go to school, you have to ask these questions to make sure. We get a lot of people like with Carver Middle make the mistake and apply for the IS program, but the kid doesn't speak Italian. So at that, but they're going to fail the test, and also they just lost the opportunity of going to that school because they can apply for the IE program. So make sure when you research the middle schools, you ask these particular questions to make sure your child is a fit for that school. But I mean, I'm not going to repeat it, but they pretty much summed up everything. Do your research, tour the school, ask questions. I mean, there's no dumb question, pretty much. Parents like, oh, I'm sorry to ask. No, just ask. I mean, I'm a parent, and in fact, I'm a parent of a middle schooler who started last year, and it's a scary process. My son started at 6 to 12. I didn't realize, as a parent, oh my God, my son's doing school with high schoolers. I didn't think about that. So, and then you have the K-8s where they're still in an elementary environment, but again, middle school is a different level.
Now that you just mentioned that, how do you feel about the schools that cater just to middle schoolers? Of course, you're a parent, and now you enroll your kid into a middle and a high school. That's a question that I get a lot. The middle school years are very different, and sometimes you don't want to expose them to the high school years, but then it gives you also a lot of learning opportunities. So how do you feel about that? Is that a thing to be concerned, or?
I mean, again, every child is different, so you have to see if that's an environment you think your child will be fine in. A lot of times the schools, they do separate them, but they do interact in the hallways.
Yeah.
So again, by you touring the school, you can ask those questions and see. But you might be surprised. I've had parents call me, oh, my son's very timid, what's a good school? Luckily, they were interested in science, so I found them a school up north, I'm from north, and so they love it. It was an environment that's a perfect fit for a child, so that's why you have to go see the schools and see that school's a fit for that child. And she called me up, she's like, oh, my son loves it because he's a very private, very insecure kid, but he loves robots. And so it worked for him. So it's very important that you research the school and you tour it and you make sure that's what you want and ask those questions to see if that's an environment you want. I had a parent, so just do your research. And I also recommend, whatever you end up doing for middle school, start looking at high schools. Unless you're going to 612, but even if you're at 612, just in case, what if you're in that school and that school doesn't fit you? I mean, I had a parent just tell me, like, why not they're in the school and they don't like it. So now they're looking for other options. So it's always good to be ahead of the game. If your child is in elementary, start looking at the middle and high school. Start doing your research. Like the people going on for elementary, they should probably be sitting here just listening in. But I always tell everybody who gets into 6th grade, start looking at your high school options. It gives you 3 years to just tour schools. and see, you might end up staying where you're at, but like I mentioned earlier, you're better off applying and saying no than saying, oh my God, I wish I did. So I'd rather be able to say, no, I don't want it, than to say, man, I wish I had it. So no matter what options you do your research. When you get to 6th grade and you're starting middle school, start researching. Like I said, in the beginning of the school year, they all do tours. They're all trying to promote their schools. Go and check them out. All right, this year I looked at these schools, I don't like it. Okay, next year I go to these other schools. And then in 8th grade, if you decide to, if you're not at 6 through 12, okay, these are the schools I'm really interested in. I'm going to start touring them and really looking at it hardcore. So, recommend, that's where you do your research and be ahead of the game.
And I just want to mention, for the campus tours, very important that you can bring your child, hopefully. There's a date and time where you can bring your child to the school, because we want to see how they react during that tour. Have parents that come in alone, or just dad, because he was the only one that could go at that time, then reserve another spot and go to another one, and make sure your child sees the school, because you'll be surprised.
I think that's a great point. I think that even for our elementary school years, sometimes I definitely think that was mentioned, but especially middle school and high school even more. But I think this is such an important part of a kid's life that you need to see how he or she feels in that environment. So thank you so much. I think that, do you want to add anything, John?
I was just gonna. I had one. I did have one thought. With it was said earlier, and we said here, but the right fit really is everything. But I would also say, again, as a parent and also as an educator, we sometimes have to think of that school relationship that to kind of give it like once you have made the decision and gone in, don't be too reactionary if you immediately think, oh, I've made a mistake. Because everything's not going to be perfect. So sometimes once you have found that right fit, give it a little bit of time before you react to make a change, just because maybe kind of trust your original instincts and give it a chance. Now, and if you turn out that it's not the right fit, then there are so many options that there's no reason to stay in. There's no reason to stay in a bad relationship. I guess is the way to put that. But and be looking around, because a lot of schools do have rolling admissions. It sounds like a lot of charter and magnet do. I know a lot of private schools do, but there are a lot of rolling admissions. So just kind of keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, or I think that we can bring it, to the hallway. Perhaps we'll meet some of the moms that were here for elementary, and we can all connect. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you outside. Thank you.